Is Lily Orchard the Beetlejuice of YouTube? You mention her anywhere, and right on cue, there's no shortage of concerned commenters urging you to not whisper her name. And since I'm an expert in ignoring well-intentioned advice, today I woke up at the crack of noon and decided I'm going to review Lily Orchard's Iris and Kiera. It's a series of short fiction vignettes about two sisters. There's Iris, who's diagnosed with verbal apraxia, or muteness, and Kiera, the world's most specialist little empath, who can understand Iris just based on her facial expressions. And I mean really understand her. It's bordering on a psychic connection. And despite snarking on Lily Orchard being a branch of YouTube with a gross GDP to rival California, I couldn't find anyone reviewing this clunker. So I feel content that I'm doing everything right, and everyone around me is wrong. And I know that sounds dense, but trust me, it is no match for this story. Iris and Kiera was shockingly arrogant. This is the result of someone barreling ahead light speed, don't you dare tell me I'm wrong, and then making the most laughably doofy portrayal of muteness and ASL. And not even for like a comedy bit or to piss off your deaf foster mom who took away the PlayStation because she found your fake ID. So now you'll show her who's boss by writing some choice flash fiction Yuri. Iris and Kiera is a soft and fluffy slice of life story that's supposed to be about super sweet escapism. But this handled disability so poorly, it was distracting. So that's what I'll be talking about today. And I only know basic ASL, so do not ask me to interpret when you get in a fight with your deaf foster mom. I am not qualified to make any red line corrections to a work with ASL, so this is not me attempting to teach or moralize, I'm just bringing what I know to a media review. But if you scroll through the Learn ASL side of TikTok for an hour, I promise, you will know more about ASL than Lily Orchard. I've read everything Iris and Kiera on Lily Orchard's Tumblr, as well as the chapters archived on Kiwi Farms. As far as I know, this is the entire story, so I will be going through every chapter and sharing my notes. So chapter 1 takes place when the main two are children, hanging out at the beach with their two dads. I forgot their names, let's just call them Daddle D and Daddle Dum. It doesn't matter. They have no personality other than being dads. Kiera wants to take a picture of a sandcastle, so she asks Daddle D for the camera. And Daddle D, in what might be his only attempt to parent, tries to make her say please before giving her the camera. So Kiera, instead of showing a little bit of goddamn manners, claims she's just repeating what Iris told her. And when Dad asks Iris to repeat it to him, she just tilts her head. And Kiera says that's how Iris says please. So I'm thinking, okay, is Kiera just a conniving little scoundrel who makes shit up? This isn't how you say please in ASL, and for a home sign, it seems pretty mismatched. I would not assume a tilted head means please, especially in this context, but hey, this is when they're kids. Their official character bio claims that they're both fluent in ASL, maybe they pick it up eventually. But the next chapter immediately throws that good faith speculation in the trash. In chapter 2, Ride, Kiera's girlfriend Larissa is stuck at the airport. It's 2 a.m., she's too broke for a cab, and there's no buses. I don't know what airport has such an early bedtime, but sure. Luckily, Iris shows up to save her from a night of roughing it out on the airport bench. And the story tells us since Iris is driving, she could only answer yes and no. Okay, I mean, maybe. Look, you can do ASL with one hand. Just like with spoken language, you can have an accent and modify the language. And if you're fluent in ASL, you can sign while you drive. But drivers are the same everywhere. Whether it's signing or talking, anyone reasonable is going to tell the passenger seat chatterboxes, shut up and let me focus on the road. But oh, it gets worse. Because Iris doesn't use the yes and no most commonly found in ASL, she uses thumbs up and thumbs down, which, sure, you can use to connote good or bad. But have you ever tried doing that while driving? Go ahead, try it. Stick your hands on an imaginary steering wheel and throw a thumbs down. Feels awkward, doesn't it? Meanwhile, the most common sign for no in ASL is a lot snappier and one you can easily make while driving. So this whole thing goes from, wow, bold move writing a story with ASL while your internet's down and you couldn't even Google the basics, to, hold up, did you think this through? We also learned that Iris reads all of Kiera's texts. That's how Iris knew that Kiera's girlfriend Larissa needed a ride. So, I'm wondering, are all of Kiera's texts auto-forwarded to Iris's phone? Does Iris know Kiera's passcode? Or does she break in at night when Kiera's asleep using her fingerprint while she's conked out? Either way, Larissa is surprisingly chill about it all. She gives a middling shrug like, yeah, that checks out. I think anyone with a spine would go, fuck you for snooping through my girlfriend's phone. I'm taking my chances with the bench. Does this chick have any self-respect? And the audience is treated to more backstory. Iris and Kiera have always clung to each other, and Iris, being mute, has a reputation at school for being the creepy girl. Considering her only hobby we've seen so far is snooping through her sister's phone, I think the bullies were spot on here. This chick is nutso. Before Larissa gets dropped off, Iris pulls out her phone and starts texting. Okay, like, really, you've been mute your whole life, and you never thought to install a basic text-to-speech app? Doesn't this come standard on most phones nowadays? Alright. Anyway, she texts Larissa, You're important to Kiera, so that means you're important to me. And they have a heart-to-heart, and it's all super sweet. Never mind that this scene plays out like the start of a horror movie, we're supposed to see it as sweet. And the sweet times keep rolling in Chapter 3. Quality time. Kiera just got back from a super fun prom night, and Iris stayed home, and after Kiera tells Iris about prom, Kiera treats Iris to ice cream. So when Kiera first arrives home, she's slightly drunk, and all she has to say is that her girlfriend looks so pretty in her prom dress. But that's it, she's pretty, and she feels so in love, and I'm suspicious. You didn't want to get a hotel room for you and your lady, you'd rather go home to your sister and eat ice cream with her? Look, dude, when characters are prom-aged, I don't want to hear about their tales of conquest, but everyone knows what happens on prom night. When things escalate to second base, you can tastefully pan away to a window with a fluttering curtain. Making your character go home and hang out with her sister after things seem to go well is such an odd conclusion to prom night. There's also a lot of touchy-feely nonsense between the characters that made me raise an eyebrow, but this was minimal on the misplaced ASL, so I will move on to the next chapter. Home. We flash forward to Kiera's wedding night, and Iris sure is bummed out that Kiera and Larissa are married and getting their own place. At least we're breaking one stereotype here. These lesbians are high school sweethearts who chastely abstain from renting a U-Haul until marriage. Waiting to move in until you're married is so laughably old-fashioned. But if even prom couldn't make these two do more than hold hands, I guess that checks out. Kiera video calls Iris, and I will just read you the excerpt. Ahem. Hey, Kiera said. Morning. What time is it over there? Iris smiled and blinked. Oh damn, only 3 hours? I'm jet-lagged as hell. Kiera laughed. Listen, I called because I wanted to talk to you about something. Iris tilted her head. So I was talking to Larissa, and we've decided instead of moving into her studio, she's just gonna come live with us, Kiera said. Iris's eyes widened, and she sat up straight. I know, it's just the one. But it's a big bedroom. 3 people can fit in there, Kiera laughed. We'll get, that double bed with a bunk over it. Or a Cal King. We'll make it work. Iris tilted her head. Well, I was talking about it with Laurie, and honestly, I don't want to move out. Kiera smiled. I'd miss you. I'd miss you a lot. Iris went completely still. Iris? Kiera said. Iris's eyes started to sting and well up with tears. Iris, come on, say something. Iris sniffled as tears slipped down her cheek. To reassure Kiera she was okay, she put on the biggest smile she could muster. Oh, Iris, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you think I was just leaving, Kiera said. Iris shook her head. You sure? Iris nodded emphatically. Okay, Kiera said. No matter what happens, I want you to be a part of my life. You talking to Iris? Came Larissa's voice in the distance. Yes, babe, I'm talking to Iris, Kiera said, looking past the camera. You tell her about... I told her about moving in. Ask her if she prefers bunks or a Cal. I already did. She's having a moment. Sap! Kiera laughed and turned her attention back to her sister. So you're good with Larissa moving in? Iris nodded emphatically. Emphatically again. How many times is she gonna nod emphatically? Great. I gotta go. I'll iron out the details later, Kiera said. Tomorrow we're going to decide on sleeping arrangements. Once we do, can you order our new beds and put them together? Iris nodded, lifting a hand and making devil horns with her fingers. I love you too, Iris, Kiera smiled. Get some rest. You look exhausted. Iris arched a brow. I'm jet-lagged, you bitch! Kiera laughed. I'm allowed to be sleepy. Oh my god, just hang up already. This conversation is over. Why are we still here? Holy shit. Alright. Love you too, Iris, came Larissa's voice in the distance. Iris made the horns with her fingers again. She says she loves you too, Kiera called out. Okay, I gotta go. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Oh my god. Just drawing this out as long as possible. She blew Iris a kiss, and then the call cut out. Iris set her phone down on the coffee table and stared at it. In one short call, all of the dread and anxiety had been wiped away. Not only was Kiera not moving out, she preferred it this way. Iris hadn't been the burden she thought she was being. It had been easy to think she was after an entire lifetime of snide remarks and doctors' coercive attempts to get words out of her mouth. In a single conversation, that idea of herself had been shattered, not just by Kiera, but by Larissa as well. Oh, and by Larissa as well. Wow. She smiled and stood up. With a renewed sense of peace, a nap sounded really good about now. End quote. So I'll go in order from least to most concerning. We see that Iris does devil horns, and I was imagining the sign for Lucifer, signed ironically. Maybe she meant the sign of the horns, or the hang loose gesture. These two are frequently mixed up, especially if you're at a beachfront heavy metal venue. But in any case, the orientation of the sign makes a huge difference. The hang loose gesture, or the Shaka sign, is made with the ASL sign for the letter Y. If you bring it to your forehead, it means bull. If you wiggle it near your eyes, it means silly. And this one might be kind of tricky, but I'll do my best to explain. If you bring the Shaka sign near your forehead and flap the index, middle, and ring finger at the same time, it means gullible. You don't need to look that one up, just trust me. However, I think she meant the I love you sign. This is one of the most recognizable ASL signs, so why didn't she just say that? She signed I love you. There. Easy. No need to bring up ambiguous devil horns. Which brings me to my next point of concern. Iris isn't doing a lot of signing, yet Kira knows exactly what she's thinking. Smiling and blinking means 3 hours. Is she blinking in Morse code? The way you count on your fingers is one of those interesting things that says a lot about your personal history, but instead of taking a chance to show a bit of lore, I guess that Iris and Kira understand each other so intimately that they can communicate with tiny facial expressions. This isn't even a case of cryptophagia. These two have ascended. Okay, there was something similar happening in Poke Madhouse. And if you're unfamiliar, Poke Madhouse is a comic about Lily Orchard's self-insert OC and her Gardevoir. The two have a soul bond where they can read each other's minds, and there is a will they or won't that's persistent throughout the story. Gardevoir is in love with Lily, but Lily is clear that it's never going to happen. Eventually, they accept each other as sisters, but like, really super duper close sisters. I mean, suspiciously close. No one understands their super special bond. Everyone around them is just not understanding. And in that case, it was kind of dorky, but it was a concept rooted in fantasy. Unless you go the Tulpa route, Gardevoir literally can't invade your mind and create a soul bond. So I'm sensing something similar here, but it's with someone who has a disability, not a Gardevoir, nothing supernatural. So there's the fantasy element of, ooh, what if I could be innately understood? There's nothing explicitly pushing this into the realm of fantasy. We just have to believe that Kira and Iris really, 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 really like each other. So just by facial expressions, they know what they're thinking. And now for the most concerning part of all of this. Larissa didn't know about this living arrangement until her wedding night. She thought she was getting a new place with the wife, but oops, guess she's moving into her apartment with the sister, and whoopsie doodle, the sister's gonna be sharing the bed. The story is an unfortunate offshoot of the contrived conflict or the idiot plot. It's not just the characters don't communicate, it's that they're constantly springing shit on each other, but it always turns out just peachy because Kiara is so compassionate and so understanding. It's a good thing Kiara knew her wife would be fine with this domestic arrangement, because springing this on someone the night you get married is absolutely grounds for divorce. The next chapter, Mist, almost makes me think Lily Orchard got some feedback about how she writes ASL, but I still have some notes. Kiara and Larissa return from their honeymoon, and Iris arrives home with some coffee. She chit-chats with Larissa about the big old California king, where all three will be snuggling up. We see Iris signing with one hand while she holds the coffee. Alright, good improvement. I'm glad someone told you that's possible. This is also the most Iris has actually conversed so far, but you know what? I'm still not happy, because we're still not directly hearing from her. Instead, Larissa's repeating back what she said and giving the audience enough context clues similar to how the kids in South Park treat Kenny. This is making me nuts, okay? This is a book. The written word. When South Park did it, it was to bypass TV censorship. When American Dad did the same bit, the ongoing joke was whenever Toshi would speak Japanese, Steve would seemingly repeat back what he said but completely misunderstand and inadvertently say the opposite. And I'm not here to argue about comedy, I'm saying I can sense what those scenes were going for. So what does framing Iris's half of the conversation like this accomplish? Because this isn't a comedy bit, this is just a conversation that's mixed between ASL and English. How do I know Iris isn't getting the Toshi treatment? Why can't you just tell me what she's signing? And look, I haven't read a lot of books with deaf characters, but the consensus seems to be that if you have a signing character, you can more or less render their dialogue similar to how you would a verbal character. There is no need for italics or special connotations, just replace said with signed and throw their words in quotation marks. You also don't need to worry about grammar. Reading a book in English and abruptly switching to ASL grammar is a pain, and describing individual hand motions and walking through the sentences step by step would drag down the experience. With writing, you can take creative liberty, so your story can include something like, Iris signed, I had to put the bed together all by myself. And unless you're doing signed exact English, that's not an exact play-by-play of what she's conveying, but writing fiction's about the vibes. And if you really want to be a superstar writer, you can add little flourishes to describe how she's signing or work in unique ASL slang. My point is there's a lot of ways you can write a character who's using sign language. Stepping over her and treating her like Kenny has to be the worst. The next chapter is Doctor, a flashback to when the main two were young, and a doctor's trying to help. Keyword is try, because he doesn't try very hard. This dude is such a damn enabler, basically he shrugs and lets Kiera continue to interpret for Iris instead of pushing her out of her comfort zone and working to improve her. Let me read you an excerpt. Iris, look at me please. Iris twitched and looked up at Dr. Klein. I understand that you feel... dehumanized, Klein said. But shutting down isn't the answer. At least not here. If you don't advocate for yourself, we won't know what you need. Iris scowled. She said she tried it first, and you didn't listen. Kiera said, yeah, I'll give her the snotty kid voice for this. I think it's appropriate. You took Dad's word over hers. Klein hummed. All right. What do you want, Iris? Iris glanced at Kiera and twitched her fingers. She said she doesn't want to do any more scans, and she doesn't want you to separate us again, Kiera said. All right. No more scans, no more separation, Klein said. Iris drummed her fingers against the table. And she wants to be involved in decisions made about her, Kiera said. Not in here while you and our dads talk about her. That could certainly be done, Klein said. And you'll use the whiteboard? Iris shook her head, then pointed to Kiera. She wants me to interpret. Klein frowned slightly. It wasn't ideal progress, but it was progress. End quote. Hey, dumbass, you're the adult here. There is no way this is what's good for her, right? Right? I mean, clearly it isn't. If 20 years later, every bedtime she's third-wheeling in her sister's California King. This also would have been a good chance to introduce some conflict. How would you solve the issue of a mute child exclusively talking through her sister? Can't exactly tell one of them to hit the bricks. Instead, you're just caving to what the verbal sister says. You're not even bothering to call bullshit. What, were you going to try some exposure therapy with Iris, but then you realize that today is the holiest of days for the youth, the Kids' Choice Awards, where kids make the rules, so you had no choice but to kowtow to the almighty word of the child? I guess this gentle way of doctoring had a profound impact on Iris. The next chapter, Patience, flashes forward. Iris now has a job as a doctor, and Kiera and Larissa have a daughter, Melissa. This one was mostly Iris talking with some dumb kid's mom about some dumb kid's behavioral issues, and Iris is like, "Ooh, your kiddo's just misunderstood." And how is she talking? With a whiteboard. The least efficient way to non-verbally communicate. So we finally hear directly from her, but I'm just distracted like, come on, you couldn't rig up a text-to-speech keyboard for this? Why do you have such a people-facing job if you hate communicating? And I'm still scratching my head about Iris. We're how many chapters in, and I still don't know what's her deal. Seriously, does she have any interest besides clinging to her sister? Like when Kiera's not around, she's just out there lecturing parents on how to raise their kids? Does being a professional know-it-all count as a hobby? Yeah, I get it, she's supposed to be a doctor or whatever, but she's out here using a whiteboard like it's cutting-edge tech. If she's so smart, maybe she could figure out how to type like the rest of us. In the next chapter, Stare, we get a flashback to Kiera and Iris in school. And since one of the mean old bullies calls Iris creepy, Kiera fights back. Quote, Kiera flipped her soda bottle upside down, turned and cracked Alicia across the side of the head. Bitch! She sneered, before taking her lunch and heading to Iris's table. End quote. Alright, if this is a bottle of Mexican Coke, this is pretty violent. But the story immediately moves on to Kiera and Iris smiling and reassuring each other. Here's how the chapter ends. It's not your fault Alicia's being weird, Kiera said. I think I'm just gonna stick with the snotty kid voice. Iris smiled. Throughout her entire life, she'd been hauled in and out of doctors and counselors by her fathers, trying to find the root cause for her lack of speech. Wait, why did the doctors care what's the cause? Once you rule out physical cause, you can get to work, so I would think the goal would be to just make her start talking. Why is everyone wondering what's the cause? Alright, whatever. Everyone from her parents, to her teachers, to her peers, tried to get her to talk, or sign, or write on a board. Anything other than simply be quiet and be by herself. She didn't understand it. It's not like she was bothering anyone. It only made her less willing to interact with others. Kiera was the lone exception. Kiera could always infer what Iris was thinking, never asked her to do anything she wasn't comfortable with, and actively intruded on people trying to force words out of Iris's mouth. Oh, actively intruded instead of passively? Okay. Everyone else wanted Iris to make herself easier to understand. Kiera was the only one who tried to understand her as she was. Yeah, the only one, sure. All right. She reached up and laid her hand on Kiera's shoulder and gave her a big, bright smile. Kiera smiled back and patted Iris's hand. Love you too. End quote. The next chapter, Saturday, starts with a flash forward. Iris and Kiera are cozy on the couch, watching the news highlight announcing that Iris helped pass a bill that lets kids over 12 opt out of psychiatric treatment. And this is seen as a huge accomplishment, but is this really worth celebrating? 12-year-olds aren't world renowned for their sound decision making. That's the age you treat Mountain Dew as a reasonable replacement for water. Therapy is only as effective as you make it. If you want, you can sign up for therapy and tell the doctor, meh, I don't feel up for chit-chat, and sit in silence for an hour. And that'd be a waste of time, but if you can pay up, it's your right to do that. And when it comes to child psychiatric care, I'm guessing there's way more kids pulling that shit than adults because it's the parents making the appointment, not the kids. What immediately came to mind were cases of identified patients or scapegoating in family therapy. For example, the Griffin family might make Meg go to therapy because she's deemed a problem. In reality, she's just a regular kid, and the entire family's developed destructive habits. But it's easier to blame Meg for everything rather than consider the bigger issues. And in those cases, a psychologist can potentially crack away at the bigger family issues over time, or at least help Meg rough through her bad situation. But that chance plummets to zero if Meg walks out on the first day and says, F this, my dad is the problem, not me. And in that case, she's right. But for things to escalate to that point, therapist intervention is probably better than nothing. I'd also see involuntarily committing a troubled teenager as an alternative to juvie and potentially steering them off of the school to prison pipeline. So if they say, I don't want psychiatric help, well, what do you do with them? Straight to jail? The issue of child and parent disagreeing on medical treatment has a lot of interesting hypotheticals. If a child has cancer and doesn't want chemotherapy, but the parents do, what does a doctor do in that case? If you disagree with your fundy parents, can you go behind their back and get vaxxed or get an STD test? The concept of anyone over the age of 12 opting out of psychiatric treatment feels aligned with what writer and my personal internet dad, Freddie DeBauer, describes as the gentrification of mental illness. That is, there's a cultural shift towards seeing mental illness as adorable personality traits, and anything violent or dangerous gets conveniently dismissed as not real mental illness. So with that in mind, Iris is framed as another feel-good fantasy about mental illness. She's not damaged, she's just misunderstood. And sure, dysfunction is a nebulous term. Considering she's able to take care of herself and hold a steady job, she's a lot less messed up than me. But I still get the sense that something needs to be done if her preferred method of communication is making faces at her sister. What's more is Iris never actually experienced medical abuse, just the annoyance of going to the doctor before the doctor totally caved, threw up his arms, and enabled Iris and Kiera to spiral deeper into their coping mechanism. It's like this bill is justice for the petty displeasure of going to a doctor instead of staying home and playing Nintendogs. And to top it all off, we find out Iris still won't speak directly to her dads. She's still got Kiera and Larissa playing facial expression interpreter. But Daddle D and Daddle Dumb still want a relationship, since they sent her a tape of the news segment highlighting this achievement. Our next chapter is Nap. Iris sure is tired from work, so her sister cuddles up with her and they nap together. It's pretty mundane, but here's how it opens. Doing 12 write-ups a day was a strain on Iris's tolerance for language, as well as her wrist. She set the pen down over a half-finished draft for the parents of a girl who, like her, was diagnosed with verbal apraxia because of a tumor. The girl's parents were showing the early signs of trying to discipline the words out of her, something Iris felt so compelled to intervene on, she'd taken her work home with her. End quote. Alright, so are Iris's problems psychological or not? Is this just a poor sentence structure, or did this girl get wrongly passed off to the wrong doctor? If this girl has a tumor causing her muteness and her parents are trying to discipline the words out of her, isn't that abuse? You're a mandated reporter, or do the cops not accept notes written on a whiteboard? Here I was thinking, oh man, there's just so many intricacies about mental illness and involuntary commitment that Lily Orchard doesn't think through, but nah, she's not even breaching that level. I'd also have some questions about what counts towards her tolerance for language. Even if you're not talking, your facial expression minutia you do with your sister is still communicating. You're still around someone else. I know that being at work will drain a social battery more than being around your bestie, but after a long shift, you're gonna be fried. So what counts as language to Lily Orchard? I guess the special facial expressions don't? We see when Iris texts, she sends emojis even for more complicated ideas. I thought this was just a character quirk, but does that not count as language to her? I am actually confused. Are the sisters actually literally psychically communicating so it doesn't impose on her tolerance for language? I know genre shift is thrown around a lot as a way to improve a shitty book, but this is one that would actually make a lot of sense. If one of the sisters was secretly a supernatural entity, there's enough odd things going on here that it would feel obvious on a reread. So our next chapters, and the tentative finale until Lily Orchard picks us back up, are Fear, Part 1 and 2. So if at home Iris clings to Kiera, and at work she bosses around parents, what does she do when she's hanging around Larissa? Taking bullets! Yes, that's right. Iris is in the hospital after being gunned down by a mugger, who shot when he demanded both their wallets and their PIN numbers, and poor old Iris couldn't answer the psychopath. I guess it's supposed to be, how tragic, she's shot for being mute. If only she could have answered, she would have been safe from this gun-wielding psychopath. Look, okay, I don't think there's anything you could say to make sure you're 100% safe in that situation. And this detail of, give me your credit cards and your PIN number is so oddly specific. Especially if you're logged into Google Play or if you use your credit card for everything, it's easy to forget your PIN. Wouldn't asking for the last 4 digits of your social and mother's maiden name do more long-term damage? Okay, most muggers don't want to escalate their crime. So here's my personal headcanon. 5 years ago, this mugger was an oppositional defiant 13-year-old who said, "Screw you, Dad," when he was signed up for therapy, and thanks to the new child psychology laws, he was free to buzz off, and no one could course correct the little bastard. As an adult, he realizes what a mistake this was, since his day-to-day life has now devolved into a GTA LARP. So now he's getting his revenge by taking out the doctor who started it all. But back to canon events. This chapter goes on to play the greatest hits of a dramatic hospital episode. Pacing around the waiting room, anxious for an update, Larissa reminding her wife that Iris is such a trooper, and Kiera snapping back with a tearful, "Don't give me false hope." We then learn that Iris is stable. But if one of those bullets had been a few millimeters off, Iris would have been a goner. It's so fucking corny. When Kiera is allowed to visit. Okay, so when Kiera is allowed to visit, Iris signs that the mugger called Larissa something. And now I'm just thinking through every slur I know how to sign, so thanks for letting me fill in the blank, asshole. Alright, so in Fear Part 2, we hear Larissa's side of the story. She says she initially didn't share that Iris took a bullet for her, because if Iris passed away, she's afraid that Kiera would somehow blame Larissa for that. And we get a lot of reassurance and feel-good snuggles that Kiera loves Larissa. She's not second place to her sister. Why she's feeling second place even this deep into their marriage is another issue entirely, and I'm not holding my breath expecting them to address it. So after going over all the quirky ways Iris is handling her recovery while mute, we get a scene with Larissa and Iris. Larissa's still on the guilt tour, but Iris reassures her that she loves her, and she says she's her sister. The text reads, "That's sweet, but really, I've never had anyone do that for me before." What, taking a bullet? I don't think a lot of people could say that, alright. Anyway. Especially not when I'm just their sister's wife, and Iris frowned and shook her head before holding up her thumb, index finger, and pinky. Larissa blinked. "You love me?" Iris smiled and nodded, making a series of gestures. "You're my sister." Larissa's breath hitched. Damn it! She was going to cry again. She reached up and wiped her eyes on her sleeve. "I love you too, Iris," she said, before leaning in to kiss her forehead. "I'm so glad you made it out of this." End quote. Okay, I know the first rule of learning ASL is don't learn ASL from someone who's not deaf, and I've been skirting the line here, but I will explode if I do not say something. You are using the wrong sign for I love you here, or at least you're keeping Larissa out of the sister zone forever. The I love you sign that they're using here is one that's very cute and playful. I see it often used like you're blowing a kiss as you're saying goodbye. In English, it's like saying love ya in a casual context. This is different from a more serious I love you, which is where you cross your arms across your chest to make an X. That's the one you use if you're saying, "I took a bullet for you because you're my sister." Now, if you're saying, "Hey, I'm not here for the ASL, I'm mute, not deaf. I need a story about a mute character that isn't such a joke," I would like to kindly and humbly offer the 2024 animated film Gracie and Pedro. It's one of those corny, the pets find their way home kids movies, and it looks like direct-to-DVD slop you'd find at the bargain bin, but hear me out. This has a surprisingly kind portrayal of disability. The little brother character doesn't speak, and they never get into a dark backstory or explanation. He's accepted as part of the family, and he's never expected to overcome his disability. He uses a combination of a text-to-speech app on his phone and ASL to communicate. Now, the ASL in this was a little rocky. For example, when he loses his phone, he runs after it and signs phone at his sister. Well, alright, I guess that works. And full disclaimer, I watched the Espanol dub of this movie, not the original English version, and wait, why was this originally released in Russia? What kind of rabbit hole did I find here? Alright, anyway, the most complex sentence he signs is, "I miss you," and he saves his complex thoughts for his speech app. Felt like a case of the animators eyeballing an English to ASL dictionary doing their absolute best with their limited budget and time. In all fairness, this did have a disability consultant, but I couldn't find anyone deaf on staff to help with the ASL. So I'd give it a B- for effort, and I'll bump it up to a solid B if anyone on staff ever comes forward with how they want for this character to be portrayed better. And that gets into a whole discussion of who's allowed to tell what story. For a movie with a huge staff, it's a little easier to side-eye and be like, come on, buddy. You could pay for catering, but you couldn't get a deaf guy for an afternoon to help out with the ASL? But hey, I don't know what kind of red tape was in place or how much the final cut of the movie was improved from a previous draft. And this could have been the result of a well-intentioned animator saying, hey, let's add a little ASL as a treat, without the intention of it snowballing into something bigger. Another recent cartoon movie, Under the Boardwalk, is about hermit crabs, and one of them communicates with sign language, so they hired a deaf actress to sign out the ASL for the deaf character. Although the characters are crabs with crab hands, you can still pick up on what they're signing. And I hope we see more ASL seiyus in big-budget cartoon productions. I thought that was pretty cool. Writing fiction is a little different because it comes from one person. When you make a spectacle out of, wow, look at how wrong this is! Well, it can discourage people from even trying to be inclusive in their stories. And that sucks. I hope no one's takeaway here is, well, I guess I shouldn't even bother trying to write people different from me. Otherwise, I'll get laughed at on the internet. First of all, getting made fun of on the internet fucking rocks. That's why I shamelessly post my Ozempic fantasies on E6 using the same username I use everywhere else. Second of all, Iris and Kira is not a story about exploring differences. At its core, this is a very insular hugbox fantasy that happens to have a disabled character. Because this isn't someone trying in earnest to write a disabled character, this is someone narrow-mindedly venting. The disabled character is given as much thought as anything else. This never stops to consider even the most basic nonverbal communications. At its core, Iris and Kira is a reskinned Poke Madhouse, but I would argue that Iris and Kira is much, much worse. There's an interesting moment in Poke Madhouse that beautifully drives home their concepts of non-traditional love. Gardevoir is worried about her new relationship with another Gardevoir. Before this, her closest bond was with Lily, and they can literally read each other's minds thanks to their soul bond. But she can't have a soul bond with anyone besides Lily, so Gardevoir is freaking out like, alright, how's this new relationship with the other Gardevoir going to go? And Lily tells her, you just need to talk to her and have open communication, like any relationship. It was such an interesting way to express polyamory in a fantasy setting. Just because you have one strong, unique relationship doesn't mean you can't form bonds with others. And this was also great for character development. My big annoyance at that comic was the constant will they or won't they between Gardevoir and her trainer, and insisting that they won't. The execution was a bit fumbled, but giving Gardevoir her own romantic relationship was a step in the right direction. So I can definitely see how Iris and Kira are from the same author, working through the same concepts. And to its credit, Iris and Kira does avoid one of Poke Madhouse's biggest missteps. A lot of people ship Gardevoir and her trainer because Gardevoir starts the story pretty directly and plainly in love with her and eventually gets over it. They also have a soul bond and their respective girlfriends are written as an afterthought, and oh yeah, they have a kid together. So despite this supposedly being a story of platonic love, shippers gonna ship, and Poke Madhouse served them plenty of reasons to do so. Iris and Kira are incredibly affectionate, but there's never a love confession, and although I'd say it crosses into inappropriate, yes, I am still tripped up over the sleeping arrangement, there's way less reasons for someone with shipping goggles to root for them as a couple. They're just the world's closest siblings, and Iris and Kira does a better job of conveying this to the audience and steers clear from mixed messages that would imply otherwise. But I would say it's a much worse story than Poke Madhouse. And I'm not even thinking of how they mishandled disability. It's that the conflict in Iris and Kira is so minimal, it loops around to feeling juvenile. And this isn't me scoffing at a Yonkoma and thinking, hey, nothing's happening. Because when things do happen, they're always shocking and dramatic, like passing laws and getting shot and living arrangements after a wedding. It feels like I'm watching Vincent Adultman giving his best guess when asked to explain how's life once you're a grown-up big kid. What's more is we never see Iris actually legitimately improve. Gardevoir getting her a girlfriend was an attempt at character development, but what does Iris get? A fucking whiteboard to boss around her patients? Which, by the way, how does she handle problem clients? Does she talk to the staff with her whiteboard? I mean, the jump between Iris being nonverbal to everyone except Kira and Larissa, and suddenly we smash cut to her as a doctor and she's fine as long as she could be a pain in the ass and write on the whiteboard. If she's got a job in a deaf majority town, I would believe her assimilation into her new role a little bit better. It'd be cool if there was a plot point where Iris goes, wow, I thought I hated talking to everyone. Turns out it's fine if it's ASL. Maybe there's something about ASL that makes it easier for her to communicate, and she feels at ease if she's in an environment where everyone is openly using it. And by the way, Iris doesn't mention having any friends or coworkers at the doctor's office. It's all patients this and patients that. I know not everyone's up for gossiping at the nurse's station about who got bad and who's getting divorced, but buddy, would it kill you to put in the effort? It's like her hero's journey went from being the patient that gets bossed around to being the doctor who bosses around patients. Either way, making her a child therapist feels laughably incompatible with her disorder. It's one of those power fantasies of, oh, those who are hurt the most smile the brightest, or whatever live, laugh, love horseshit is being peddled on Facebook memes nowadays. I am trying to wrap my head around exactly what is the fantasy here, because this is a clear example of a bad book revealing nothing about society and everything about the author. Much like Poke Madhouse, this is a wish fulfillment with an atypical form of communication, a longing to be innately understood, while simultaneously telling all of the normies who just don't get it to buzz off. But unlike Poke Madhouse, there's no pushing our protagonist into the unknown. It's more concerned with remaining secluded and insisting that those meanies just don't understand. So it's simultaneously very soft and cuddly, while still being very bitter and resentful. I also want to zoom in on Iris's big accomplishment, passing the law that lets children over 12 refuse psychiatric treatment. I think the reason this is seen as a huge accomplishment is because that's both the author and the character's ideal scenario. Telling anyone who says you're broken to fuck off. But I'm thinking like, okay, Iris is a child psychologist. What's her endgame? In hypothetical A, she's thinking, wow, I have this cool job where I can be a force of good, and in retirement she's thinking fondly about the life she's changed. Or is her dream scenario hypothetical B, where she's regularly telling parents that Junior says he doesn't want help, so she won't help him, and she pats him on the back and sends him home, and in retirement she's thinking of all the time she turned families away. But you would think scenario A is what a child psychologist wants to strive for. Instead, her big damn accomplishment pushes her towards a scenario B majority. And okay, I know both can coexist, but why is scenario B even an option in this fantasy? And this isn't treated as the lonelier option compared to the pro-social scenario A. She's helped those kids in their own way because this narrative takes the stance that there's no such thing as mental illness, you're just misunderstood. So in this best case scenario, instead of imagining herself as the cool doctor to help out all the wayward youth, she's imagining further isolating them and letting them fester in their mental illness, like she did as a kid. Giving the youth the option of isolation, distance, cutting themselves off from medical help and potentially their families, these are all treated as positives. And look, dude, I puke on command whenever someone says they love their family, and being involuntarily committed sucks. The issue of involuntary commitment and making kids go to therapy is a big complex issue, so I could almost see where she's coming from here. And yes, some people don't have a mental illness and they really are just misunderstood. But Iris clearly isn't. This chick needs help. Why is this character a doctor if her ultimate accomplishment is this anti-medicine, born this way horseshit where it's actually better for everyone if she just doesn't do her job at all? Don't make her a doctor if her goal is turning patients away. And I'm still not sure how the hell she ended up there in the first place. I have so many questions. Can we start with the whiteboard? I'm still stuck on the whiteboard. Just how big is the whiteboard she uses to talk to her patients? Is it one she wheels around room to room, or one the size of a clipboard? She sure did say a lot when she used it. Has anyone ever played a prank where they switched the dry erase marker with a Sharpie? Or is she really the ultimate Vincent Adultman and she's making up patients and clients and her sister's nodding along like, oh yeah, you did a good job at your brain dish today. Or maybe the sister's paying off some local actress to pretend to be her patient so she and the wife can finally get some alone time. I don't understand how you end up here. It's the kind of writing that lacks clear foresight and basic research, served with an impressive amount of arrogance. I'm sure if I made the effort to deepen our parasocial relationship, these pieces would start to click, but I'll be real. I have no interest in watching her YouTube channel. Like, come on. I don't want to listen to someone say Steven Universe sucks. I just want to watch Steven Universe. So I would be down to read and review more of Lily Orchard's fiction writing, but I do have some hesitations. What if all of those comments are right? And like Beetlejuice, once you make a third YouTube video, she's summoned into your DMs and now she's your problem forever and you're dragged into the underworld of YouTube drama Thunderdome. I know I'd survive in the Thunderdome, because the Thunderdome's all about being the biggest, wackiest asshole. But Lily Orchard's got the advantage. She has a huge fan base, and I know as soon as I step in the ring, I know all of the furry gooners are rooting for my downfall after I littered E6 with fetishes they didn't even know were possible. So the Lily fans and the furries are joined arm in arm rooting for my defeat, and I will have fulfilled my destiny as the world's biggest heel and properly united and healed the internet. And as Lily Orchard makes her final strike against me, I will sign in perfect ASL every slur